Hello everyone, this is part 10 of my Sanderson sister dollhouse videos. So to start my cauldron, I've just got this little plastic cauldron that I got at the Walmart, but I want to change it up, so I'm going to start by just cutting off this rim around the top. I'm going to take off the handle. I don't want to use that handle. And I'm probably going to cut it down all the way, maybe this low, all the way to the top of the handle. But I'm just going to start by cutting it up here and see how I like it up here, and then I may go as far as the top of that handle. So I'm just going to cut that real quick. So there, I've got that little ring cut off, and I actually think I'm just going to leave it like it is now. I don't want to cut it any lower. But now I'm going to cut out a new ring with that little thin cardboard that I use. So I'm just going to trace out a circle. I'm going to try to bring it to the edge of the cardboard, because if you just put it right in the middle, you're going to waste a lot of your cardboard. So I'm going to try to use as much of this cardboard as I can. Alright, so there's that, and then what I want to do now is draw another circle just inside, and it doesn't even have to be perfect. But you just want a ring, and then I'm going to decide how big to make this. What I really need to do is make this ring a lot skinnier. Like I need to probably half what I've already got here. See, this is my first time, just guessing on how to make a lip around the top. So, I mean, I'm just learning, with you. I'm just kind of making it up as I go. So I'll just hot glue this around here once I get it to the size I want it, and that'll give me that new lip. So I'll work on that, and then we'll do the next step. Okay, so I've got that little lip glued around the top. I didn't do the best job, but I think it looks okay. And then I sanded that just to give it a little bit of a texture. And what I want to do now is I want to give the whole thing a texture, so I'm going to use this crinkled up, I just scrunched it up, it's tissue paper. So I'm just going to put glue down and then just put this tissue paper over here just to help that lip look more like a part of the bottom half. So I'm just going to smear on some of my regular Elmer's glue, and I'm going to put quite a bit on here. I'm just going to do this in strips. I'm going to go over it again with Mod Podge, but see, this will just I could use the brush to smooth it down a little bit, but this is just going to help give it a cool texture, make it look a little more like maybe oh gosh, what's it called, the black metal, the iron. I couldn't think of it. Make sure it's clinging to the pot, and then I'll clean that up in there later after it dries. But I'm just gonna cover the whole thing in the tissue paper, making sure you get glue under every little bit of this. And I think this is just going to give it a better texture, and it's just going to make it look a lot different from just a plain plastic pot. Okay, so here is the pot. It's dry enough for me to handle it, and I like how this looks. It's going to look good when it's painted. And I've kind of pulled away that extra little bits that were up in here. I didn't clean it up too well, but it's going to have stuff in here later, so I'm not really worried about it. So this is my Mod Podge mixed with that black paint, and I'm just going to coat this whole thing in this Mod Podge. And if that Elmer's glue on there wasn't enough, this will definitely finish it out and get it all covered. So I just want to make sure I cover all this that I've left behind. And then I will do the outside. And once I get this done, I will flip it up on its top over this spray paint can, and that way I can do the bottom of it. But I like this new smaller lip around it. It just kind of looks a little bit more like it did in the movie. I like how the paper looks after it's painted. It's not too textured, but it gives it just a little bit of a texture. And I knew I wouldn't be able to paint that plastic without it just flaking off, because I really don't think there's any kind of a paint that will actually stay on plastic. Even if you put a clear coat on it, it still flakes. I just don't really think there's a great paint for plastic or glass that won't eventually peel off or scrape off. So that's why I did the paper over the top of this. Well, I did the paper to make the lip look like it's a part of the pot, but also it'll just give me this better surface to paint, and I won't have to worry about it flaking off. Okay, so here is the cauldron after I've got it painted. I'm going to stick these lights down in there and put some more of this white snow over it, and these colored lights will make this whatever color I make the lights. I was going to use the green since the smoke or the potion is green, but I think it'll be better to use the white because in the movie it's not always green. So it'll be better, I think, just to stick with the white snow. But to hang the cauldron, I've got this piece of coat hanger bent, and it was really hard to work with this coat hanger because they're not the easiest to bend. But I bent to make the loops. I just wrapped it around a screwdriver and then made the little loops in the end. And then I've drilled 2 little holes right here at the handle, and I'm just going to wire that in with a little piece of wire to where it looks like it's hanging on the pot, and then I'll hang it from a chain from the ceiling inside the house. So I will wire this to the pot, fill it full of the lights and the snow, and then I'll show you some pictures of how that's going to look at the end. Okay, so I'm finally going to start this water wheel that I have mentioned a million times. I've just got a circle of foam board cut out. This is almost 9 inches apart here. Of course, if you're going to make a water wheel, it's all going to depend on how big you need yours. But this is just a circle of foam board, and then I've got a little circle of foam board to go right in the middle. And it's good to have this that I'm working on with these little squares because it kind of helps me line this up. And then I've got these little strips of cardboard. This is sort of the thickness of a cereal box, and they're just going to fit right in here like this. And I've got 8 of those cut, and I'm just going to glue these in place like this. And it also, like I was saying, it helps to have these little squares on the table, because I can go kind of with the squares, just straight across with the squares. And then for these that sort of are at an angle, I can just go at this diagonal where these squares are and just get them lined up real good that way. So I'll just glue those in place. Okay, so here is that glued in place, and I actually have 2 of these, and I just want to make sure that these line up, because I'm going to use a piece of PVC pipe that will go down in the center of these. So I just want to make sure those are lined up okay, so that they aren't crooked when I go to put them together. And while this glue's still wet, I can sort of move these pieces around before it dries, and just make sure they look okay. Okay, and now that I am happy with how they look, we're going to let these dry good, and I'm going to lay them under something heavy, maybe like some books or something. And then here in a little bit we'll attach this PVC pipe, just like you see there. That'll give us that shape. And then once these wheels are dry, I'll attach that PVC, and then I'll come back to it and show you what I'm going to do next. Alright, so I've got my 2 wheels cut out and glued together. Now I've cut out a piece of this little thin cardboard that will go right over the top, and it will sandwich these little strips of cardboard in between this ring and the foam ring. So I'm just going to glue this down, do that to both of them, and that will also just help strengthen that foam board, because you know sometimes foam board will just snap. So just putting this on here will cap off this, and it will just help make it stronger. Alright, so while we are letting those mill wheels dry, I'm going to start making one more of these cages. This is the little cage that we see Ice and Jay sitting in. So it's even got a little working door. This is just made out of strips of cardboard. And of course I'll paint that chain later. I'm just going to wait and do them both together. But I've got these 4 little shorter strips, and I just cut these out. I just eyeball how thick I want them, and then I measured He-Man to get my measurements for this. I made sure that he can actually sit inside this. And then we've got the medium sized, and then we've got the longer ones. These shorter ones are going to be crisscrossed like this to make the bottom. So I'll glue those in place, and then one of the longer ones will wrap around to create this bottom half. So let me get this glued, and then we'll attach one of these, and then we'll just start building up from there. Alright, I've glued these in place, but I've actually done this different than how I did the first one, because the first one I first made the circle, and then I laid these little parts down in here, and I had bent one corner up like this and just laid that in there and glued it, and then just brought it over, bent it, and done it over on this side. But I forgot, and I've done them this way, but all I have to do is just make the circle, get it rounded out. Now something I like to do when you're trying to make a circle out of something like this, that's not a very pretty circle. So I take a bottle and I just kind of run it stretch it across this bottle, or even on the edge of your table. You just want to pull it and roll it towards away, just to kind of round it out. And then that'll give you a more rounded, you could even do it with your fingers, but I just feel like it's better if you do it around a bottle or on the edge of a table. Just kind of pull it, and then that'll round that a lot better. But I've got a little mark here where I want it to be, so I'm just going to glue this little ring, and then I'm just going to glue this down, just flipping up these little edges like this, and then they'll glue right to the inside of the ring. And I'll just do that to all these ends and get these two parts put together, and then we'll start building up these little side parts, and that's where it gets a lot easier. But just getting this bottom half done is probably the trickiest part. Alright, so here I've got these little corners bent up. I laid this on here and I traced my circle onto this part, and then that kind of showed me where to bend it, and I just bent it up over this little blade just to get a nice sharp bend. So now I've just got to glue these little spots around here, and that's how I got the bottom of the cage. Right now it looks kind of like a tobacco basket, if you know what those are. So let me just glue those together, and then we'll get these other half put on. Alright, so now that this is glued in place, I'm going to take the medium size and just arch them from one side to the other like this, and I'm just going to do that. I've got there's four of every piece, so I'm just going to keep doing that until I have it all four pieces arched across, just going from one side to the other. Alright, so I've got one more to glue down, and to determine the size of these arched pieces, I've just I had sat my I'd cut the strip, and I had sat my little doll in here, my little He-Man, on this round bottom half, and I just made sure that they were high enough to arch over him so that he could fit inside there. And usually I'm real picky about how this hot glue is showing, but on something like this that I want to look like metal, I kind of like that hot glue being here, because it kind of just looks like a weld, like a welded mark where they've welded this metal together. So I'm just going to leave that. There might be a couple spots where I just sort of hit it a little bit to flatten it just a little, but I'm pretty much just going to leave it on this. And then just to finish, well, not to really finish these off, I want to glue all these. This is loose, all this up here, so I'm just going to line all these up and glue those. And then these longest pieces will just go around here about middle ways, and then the other one will go up a little higher. So I'll just get these glued in, and then I'll show you how I cut out the door. Alright, so there is my crude little cage. I'll clean up some of this hot glue off of there. But now I want to decide where to make a door. So I'm just going to go right in here and snip that, and snip this, and then snip the bottom, and snip over on this side. So that gave me this little cross piece, and you just want to make sure you remember what side was where. So I gotta figure out, I think it goes this way. Alright, so then I'm gonna lay that down This is the top. And I'm going to take another small piece of the cardboard, and I'm just going to frame this out. And of course I'll measure this and make this better, but I'm just eyeballing it quick just to sort of show you. But I'm just going to frame this out and glue those parts around here like a frame, and then I'll attach it back to the cage. Okay, so here is the little door. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of bend and curve this a little bit so it's got a curve to it, kind of like the rest of the cage, so it fits in there a little bit better. And then I've even gone in and I've just attached like a little piece of the cardboard just to look like some sort of a latch, just kind of hanging down, and then I can just snip part of that off, and then that just gave me like a little latch handle thing. And for the hinge, I've just cut out a little piece of fabric, just a little black cotton fabric, and I'm going to fold it just to double it up. And it's not quite as tall as the door itself, but I'm just going to glue about half of that right on the edge of the door to where it's hanging over, and then this half will glue to the cage. But I'm going to do this using tacky glue. I'm just going to put enough tacky glue on here to fold it over and close it together. Alright, I've got that little door attached with that piece of fabric that I glued to the side. And now I'm just going to start me a little hole here at the top. Just kind of pre-poke a little hole here. And then I'm going to attach this little screw hook, which I've already got the chain attached to. Just going to screw that right into the top of that. And I'm going to let that go all the way through to the other side. And then that'll just give me something to hold on to also as I am painting this, so I don't have to touch it so much. So I've got my Mod Podge mixed in this bottle with just some black paint. So I'm just going to paint this black and then go over it, just kind of dry brush this color over it. This is a metallic chocolate brown. It's a little bit shiny, and it'll just sort of give it a rusty look. Alright, so here are the cages. I got those painted the way I want them. I painted the chains on these three pieces and the handle of the cauldron. So this area is finished, other than of course the little props and accessories. And then there's going to be a bookshelf back here on this wall, and some shelves over on these two walls that I'll work on. And of course I've got to finish painting these walls back in here back to match the rest. And then later on I'll talk and show you more about this little candle chandelier. I'm still not done with it, but we'll work on it later. And so now we'll just start working on that water wheel, and that's what we'll do next. Alright, so I started this last week, and I think where I left off was at this part where I just had these wheels together. And so now to put these together, I've got to make these little rectangles of the foam board, and they're just going to be glued at an angle right along the edge. I'm going to put one at every spoke, just around here at each one of those. and then I'll go back through and put one in between. So I'm just going to glue these on. I'm not sure what angle. I know they don't need to go straight around it, they need to be angled, so I'll figure out the angle and get all these around here, and then once I get those around there, I'll just glue this one right to those on this side, and that'll give us our little flaps around here. Alright, so here are those little flaps that I've cut, and out here on this side I've got more. I've just ran out, so I've got to cut a few more of those. So I'm just going to take that little strip that I had cut earlier, and it again, it helps me to have these squares on my table because these are each 3 inches long, so I can just lay it here at the third square and cut across there, and then that gives me that little 3-inch piece, and then I'll just glue that up there, and I'll get the rest of those cut out and glued on. Alright, so there's all those little whatever these parts are called that catches the water, and I'm just going to glue this piece onto this end of them, and that'll give me that wheel. But I don't know, I think it's going to be easier if I do this part next. We're going to put this piece of cardboard in here like this, and I think it'll be easier to glue this in right now before I glue this wheel onto there, because it would be very hard to get down in there to do that. So I think it'll be better if I glue this in there, and it's not long enough to go all the way around, so that's okay. I'll just piece it and put another piece in there to make a full circle. So I'll glue that in place, and then I'll come back and glue this other wheel on top. Alright, so I wanted to show this real quick. These little paddle things, or whatever these parts are called, are not right to the edge of this cardboard ring. I've left just a little bit hanging off back here, if you can tell that, because that's where when the cardboard comes around, this cardboard will just sort of sit right back there on that little tiny bit of a lip that I've left right back in here. So you don't want these paddles to come all the way out to the edge. You want to sit them back in just a little bit so that this inner piece of cardboard can have something to rest on also. I hope that kind of shows and makes sense. It don't have to do that, but I just thought it would help strengthen this rounded piece up, and I just feel like it's better to have that lip, because now that that's on there, it's just sort of even right here, and it just kind of finished that out. And then even when you look at it from the outside, it'll just have a nice look to it, because this wheel part will be sticking up a bit. And if it sticks up more than I want it, I'm just going to go in there with a little sandpaper in some of these spots and just sand it down and just smooth it out real good. So I'm just going to finish gluing this on. I've just got it in a way that's comfortable for me to hold it. I've got my thumb back here just to help press it against these little paddles, and I'm going under this bottom half just with a little line of hot glue, and then that's all I'm going to do to hold those in place. And my hot glue is so hot right now that it's taking it a few seconds to really, dry enough to hold it. So I got to make sure each one of these holds. And once I get this done, I'll have to figure out how to connect it to the house. I know it's got to go in and have all these little gears on the inside, so that'll probably not be something I do today, but I'll at least have the wheel done and have the rod going through it to attach to the inside. So now I'm going to have to figure out how to, since it wasn't long enough, I've got to add this second half to this and then finish going around here. So I just overlapped this just a little bit just to continue this roll of cardboard around here. So I'm just going to keep gluing this down. I've always wanted to live in a mill. We have a few houses around close to where I live that used to be old mills, and they've got them fixed into houses now, and they've still got these old wheels hanging on the sides, and I just think they're so cool. I've always wanted to go and see how they've done the inside of them. Alright, so here is the wheel. I finally got all these little parts together. It wasn't too hard to get that this ring in there. I'm just glad I did this before I put this part on. So now I've just got to run some glue on each of these little tops and then just sit that right down on top of this, and that'll be done. And then I'm going to try to scratch in some details to make this look like a wood grain like I did on the walls inside the house. I should have done that before putting it all together. I should have textured each piece on each side before putting all this together, but I could still probably do that. So I'll glue this down and scrape it up and texture that, and then we'll paint this and get this finished up. Alright, so I've got this together, and I actually forgot one piece. I've got to go in here and fill this in back in this little crack, because you can sort of see light coming through just on this one area. So I'm just going to fill that up with some hot glue, and then that will get painted over. There's actually a couple spots around it, but I'll fill those all in. And one more thing I forgot to do was to do the this little piece of PVC pipe. It's about a 3-inch long piece, and I'm just going to push this down in the middle, and that's what will give us that piece where it will let it spin later. So I'll have to glue that in place. Just put a little glue around here, and then when we run that other half through here, it'll have something to turn with. Alright, so here is the wheel, and I've noticed a couple of my paddles are not real even. Like this one is sort of crooked, but that's okay, because that just makes it look more, you know, older. Like, you know, I'm sure as old as it is, it's probably not going to be perfect, so I like sort of some of these imperfections. And that gap that's back here, I'm not even going to fill that in, because once I do this Mod Podge paint, it'll kind of fill that in a little bit more. So I'm just going to leave it like it is and just go ahead and start painting it. I did go around the edge and fill in, or not fill in, but I went around the edge and scratched it to give it sort of a wood texture. So I've just got my little Mod Podge mixed with some brown paint, and I'm just going to start painting the inside to start with. So I'll just work on painting this. And something I was wanting to talk about, it's Hocus Pocus related, is the mom and the dad from Hocus Pocus. I just wondered how many of you know what their names are, the character names, because they don't actually mention their character names in the movie. But the reason I'm bringing them up, I'll tell you their names later on, but the reason I'm bringing those up is because when they go to the party, you know, the dad, he dresses up like Dadcula, and the mama dresses up like Madonna. And in some of the merchandise that they make nowadays, they include the dad as Dadcula, but they don't make anything of the mom. And I'm guessing that's because Madonna probably has something to do with that, since it's, you know, her name and her likeness. And I've always heard that Madonna don't really let people make stuff of her. I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure that the reason for them not making stuff is probably because of her. She probably won't give them the rights to make things, which I know they made stuff of her from when they did the Dick Tracy movie. She was in Dick Tracy, and they made some things of her from that. So I don't know why she wouldn't give them the rights to make stuff for Hocus Pocus. Hopefully some company, especially the Funko Pops, I would love to see a Funko Pop of the Madonna character from Hocus Pocus. So hopefully, I don't know if it's her holding up stuff or why they don't make stuff of her character, but I would love to see some things getting made, because I do have a thing or two of the dad character dressed as Dadcula. So hopefully they will make something of her soon. But the mom's name is Ginny, and Ginny Dennison, and the dad is Dave Dennison. So it's Ginny and Dave. That's kind of funny they gave them names, because they never actually say the name in the movie, unless there was a scene maybe cut where they did use the names. I'm not really sure. Sometimes they don't even give them names if they're not going to use the name, so that's kind of cool that they did go ahead and give them an actual name for the character. But yeah, I wish they would do some stuff of those characters more when they're making the merchandise. And of course, they haven't ever made merchandise for Hocus Pocus. Just within the last maybe 3 or 4 years is when they really started that. They didn't even make stuff back when the movie came out, really. So I'm glad to see that, you know, they're starting to make stuff of the movie. I've been collecting a little bit of stuff. I don't have a lot, but, you know, it's I definitely have a few things. And if we do our Halloween party in October, we're planning on it being the Hocus Pocus theme. So I'm going to be making a lot more stuff for that. And I'll probably do videos showing some of the stuff I'm going to make, some of the costumes and things. But I ain't going to really start on those until this house is finished. But I've got a lot of things balled up that I'm going to work on. Like in the movie, there's a scene where it shows some trick-or-treaters coming out of a house, or coming off the porch of a house, and there's this skeleton that jumps up, and he's painted all these neon colors. I've got a skeleton that I'm going to paint to look like that. And then there's a green pumpkin painted to look like a witch. I've already got the pumpkin. It's actually right here. So I'm going to paint that up to look like that witch pumpkin and make it look just like that. And I've got quite a few things I'm going to be making, replicating from the movie. So I'll be working on all that. I may take a break from the house and do a couple of those things, because I've got a lot of the house done. I've got to get in the mood to put the shingles on. One reason I'm not working on the shingles is because I don't have all the supplies for that, and I'd rather wait and work on it when I've got all the stuff to do it. So I'm still just trying to gather up things for that. And even speaking of the mom and the dad, that's two of the characters that we will be dressing up like at my Halloween party, and I've already got the costumes made for those. And I would like to talk about her little cone bra thing that she wears, because that was really hard to make, and I should have done a video of me making that, because you just think that would be so easy to just take 2 cones and decorate those up, but the way I did mine, it was just very complicated, and I was trying to make them look just like the real ones. So I'll show those later on in a video and maybe talk about how I made those. But right now I'm just going to keep working on this wheel, get it painted up. And it's painting stuff like this is kind of hard because there's so many angles and sides that you have to look at and remember to paint. I'm sure I'll miss a piece, so I'm going to focus on this for a little bit, try to get all this done up, and then I will. So you got to get back in here, and all this, sometimes it's easier to just look at it this way, paint everything you see on this side, and then flip it and do this side, which is kind of what I'm trying to do. So I'm just going to paint everything on this side that I can see, and then flip it, and then I'll do that other side. So that's what I'll work on. I'm gonna cut off the camera for a little bit while I do this, and then I'll come back, maybe talk about something else, because I just wanted to mention the Madonna thing. Oh, and something else real quick about the Madonna is I listen to music on my TV. It's like a station where they just play music all day, and one station is all the 90s music. And every time a picture, or every time they play a Madonna song from the 90s, they show a picture of her from the 90s, and it's always the pictures of her with that blonde ponytail. And it makes me think of the mama in Hocus Pocus. Alright, so here is my wheel. I've just got one coat of the paint. I'll paint this better, but for right now I'm just going to show how it looks on the side of the house. I like it, but I don't like that it is hiding this back window. I mean, it's just completely over this window. This one is okay, but this one back here, I don't really like this, so I'm going to make a major change and redo this entire back window. I'm going to just rip the trim off from around it and block it in and recut it just over here closer to this side so that the wheel won't be blocking it. So I'll probably work on that. I probably won't show me doing it. I'm just going to fill that in with a piece of the foam board and then just come over here and recut it closer to the door, maybe even make it a little more narrow, and just try to squeeze it in more over here. So I'll work on that. That'll be done in the next week's video, but nothing really, I mean, it's going to be a pretty big job, but I'm just going to try to get it done between now and next week, and that'll be done then. But I just wanted to show you the water wheel, how that looks, and then of course I've got to build that little rock foundation out here for this to rest stone so that this can spin, and then later on we'll get into the inside and build all that little mechanism on the inside for this to grind up the meal on the inside. So that's all I've got for this week. I just wanted to show you how that looks on the outside. So I'll place that there, and I'll work on this window, just making it a little smaller and bringing it back some more. And so that's all I got for this week, and then next week will really be for the miniature lovers. I'm going to show a lot of the miniatures that I've got for the house already. A couple of them I've made, and a lot of them I've bought or people gave to me. So we will look at those next week, and I'll be making one of the most important props for the house next week also. So that's something y'all can be looking forward to. One thing that I meant to show was I'm going to take some of my stick pins and stick them right down in here all the way through, just kind of like a nail, just to help hold that together a little bit better, because I've been using these little stick pins in just about everything I've done. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put 2 stick pins on each piece. So I put one there, I'll put another one here, and just go all the way around both sides, sticking those stick pins in there to hold that together even better. Alright, one quick thing, I just got this done before I went to put the video together. I just wanted to show how cool those little stick pins look in there. They look like little nails going through. So I just wanted to show those to you, because I like how those turned out.